Hello. So, a few days ago, I made a video where I made an entire song from DC Offset. And personally, I thought I brought music to the next level. But some people disagreed. Some people thought, no, I don't even know if you kept it at the same level as it already is. So, in an effort to actually bring music to the next level, this time I'm going to make an entire song from a sample of silence. So let me just record my sample. Here it is. So that's what we're going to be working with. So let's check it out in Bitwig. Here it is. Fantastic. We're going to be making an entire song out of that. So how do we make a song out of silence? Well, what we can do is like, I don't know, it's like 27 or 28 here, whatever. Okay, actually we only needed 2. I just want it to be dramatic. If we put on some limiters, we're gonna get some sound. What's that? So what that is the 5G mind control devices that are always running in the background that have been picked up by my microphone. It's also the noise floor of my audio interface, and probably other stuff like my computer and the house's plumbing. And I don't know, secrets and stuff. So now that we've got that clip turned into audio, we're going to turn it into something slightly more tonal. And then I'm going to show you the track really quick, and then I'll show you how to make it. So, we've got this noise, and to that, I'm going to add a bunch of EQs. So, what I've done here is I have boosted using several EQs at C3 with like a super resonant peak, and cut everything else out. And that has given me something here that approximates a sine wave. So now, I used this sample to create the entire song. So, drums, bass, synths, whatever's in here, it's all this sample. There's only one exception, and that is I did put in a little bit of a vocal sample before the main section of the song. So, I'll let you listen to it now.
5G cell tower. 5G cell tower. 5G cell towers.
Okay, so firstly here I have a drum group that's got the kick, snare, the hat, and the shaker in it. The kick drum is made using 2 sections, so if we just play it by itself here. So it's got this low part, and it's got this top part here. So both of these are made using the sample in a sampler here in Bitwig. So on the first part here, I've just got the sample here and it's going through an EQ. So I've got this EQ like super boosted up. Now it's not a self-resonating filter when you boost it up this much. I kind of thought that was cheating, so I used the EQ instead. And the EQ is just boosted up, and then it's going down to the sub-frequencies here, and it's being controlled by an envelope that's coming all the way down from the top of the EQ. Let me just solo this part so you can hear it by itself. So it's being controlled by this envelope that is coming down from the very top of the EQ here. You can see it like super fast. And it's settling down here. And then this envelope down here is controlling the volume here of this tool. And that's basically the kick sound. So then it goes through some EQing. That's basically just making it more bassy. Then there's a saturator on it. It's making it more louder and stuff. More attack from the compression. And then there's more bass going in, more bass. So that's the bottom part of the kick. Then there's the top part. The top part is literally just the actual sample itself, the noise sample here, with a really short decay on it. So it kind of sounds like a hi-hat. And then layered together, that's the whole kick. So then underneath that, we have the snare. So the snare, I kind of wanted it to sound like one of the like old school Batman punches. So this is made like pretty similar to how the kick is made. It's got, I think, 2 sections in it as well. So it's got this longer noise tail, and then it's got this part which is just like the actual body of the snare. So the body of the snare here is made the exact same way. So I've got this sampler here, and it's got the sample in it, and then in the effects I've got that same setup where the EQ, super resonant EQ, just going down to the bottom. And then that's also, there's a tool here that's also controlling the volume of it. And then that's going through some saturation here. Then I'm boosting the resonant frequency here with this EQ and pulling out some of whatever I didn't like about that. Then it's going through a transient shaper, and the transient shaper is a cool trick where you can use it to modulate other things. So I've got an EQ in there, and the EQ is being modulated by the sustain, which is like pulling it out, so it like gives it an effect where it's like, I don't know, sucking out. So if I turn that off, it sounds like that. That makes it sound more like a punch. Like a wow. So I did that. Then that goes through some more saturation, and there's some more EQ, and then this dynamics at the end is pretty much controlling a lot of the transients. So the main thing this dynamics is doing is it's doing some upward compression to bring out the tail of the snare. So basically the quieter level is being expanded. And that is the snare. Then we have the hi-hats. Hi-hats couldn't be easier. This is a pretty good sound for hi-hats. Literally all I did was put an envelope on there. So just the one that's in the sampler. And that's just a really short decay. And then I took out a lot of the low frequencies. There's probably a bit too much reverb on that, but whatever. So that's not really doing anything exciting. It's just playing like this kind of a basic rhythm. And then there's some like micro edity stuff over here. And that's it. Then we got the shaker. The shaker is just the hi-hat again, but with more of an attack here that you can see. And I think it's pitched slightly differently as well. Yeah, it's pitched slightly higher. And you can get a lot of variation out of these sounds by just moving around, like, say, the pitch of the hats. And the position that you were in the sample. So yeah, that's that. Then there's the bass group here. So the main bass down here. So this main bass is pretty simple. What I did is I dragged in that that sine wave that I created from the sample that we had, and I messed around with the format and stuff a bit, so you can get quite a lot of variation in here with the sampler because it's not a perfect sine wave. Like there's some other things going on in there. You can get some tones out of it if you mess around with the format and stuff. So there's a lot of variation in there. Also, because the amplitude kind of changes, you can sort of get different tones by moving through the wave table here as well. And I'll explain how I did that in a sec. So you can see a lot of variation in there. The way that you set this up to be a wavetable thingy instead of just a sampler is if you come in here into cycles mode and you hit freeze, this then acts like a wavetable oscillator. You can drag any sample in there. You can drag like your serum wavetables or whatever you want to drag in there. It's amazing. Then I'm using a sine mod, which is sort of like FM in it by a sine wave, but it's a phase distortion thing. So I put that at 3, which is the ratio from the note I'm playing. And yeah, that's doing a little bit there. And then that's going into a low pass filter, which is being controlled by this envelope. And I'm only going, I'm keeping it pretty low. So if I turn off the effects here, some of the effects, you can hear that's the sound that's actually coming out. But yeah, when you put it through a bunch of effects, the minor variations that you make in the sound here are going to have a pretty big impact on the overall shebang. So let's turn on some of these effects. So it's going through a vocoder here. You can hear the vocoder is doing quite a lot. So vocoder, I'm messing around with the format. You can get a lot of different tones out of this. You can also get a lot if you mess around with the bands and stuff here. For different stuff, you may prefer that. Then you've got your brightness here, which just increases the high end. So I set that how I wanted it, and also you can set up the filter here to do some good stuff. So yeah, that's the vocoder. That's going through a saturator, which is basically just saturating it a lot. Then I got a chorus on it to widen it. Then there's an EQ, which is boosting some frequencies through the next distortion. Kind of needs that. And then there's a phaser here. And I don't know, like, I didn't do this in any particular order. I just kind of messed around with stuff until it started sounding good. And this originally started off as a completely different sound, then I changed it. So this is not an exact way of how to make this sound. This is just how I arrived at it, which is how I end up with most sounds, is I just arrive at them. Then there's a slight saturation here. This is on both the bass sound and the sub. So I've got them separated over here. You can see that I've got this section high passed. So there's this, the main bass sound, and all the effects we've looked at so far, but just been on that. And then there's this, which is the sub, and the effects from now on are on both. So we have a saturator on both of them here, followed by an OTT to bring out some high end. Actually, I think I'm doing a bit with mids there. Then I'm boosting some bass, and finally I've got like a small volume envelope on a tool, and that was just, sometimes it was coming in with a bit too much of an attack, so I softened that out. The other two filler bass sounds, which are here, these are basically just variations on that. So they've got the exact same effect, the exact same setup. This one has a slightly different envelope. It's got a different value on that sine mod there. And I'm in a different place with the formant and all that here as well. So you can see if I change that around, I'm going to get a pretty different sound. So yeah, you can do cool stuff. Then slight variation on the vocoder. Other than that, it's all the same effects. It's just slightly tweaked to sound a little bit different, but the same. And then I think there's only one more bass really in here. And I think that's... Oh no, there's two more. So there's this one then. This is made the exact same way as well. Again, slightly different value on the sine mod, different values on the formants and stuff here. And different values here on the vocoder. Those are the main three things that I'm changing, as well as the EQ. So I'm not boosting like mids the same way that I was into the main bass sound. And then finally there's one over here. So that sounds like this. Pretty heavily sidechained. So that again is just a variation of the same thing. Slightly different values in here, slightly different values in here. Looks like I'm using two sine mods here, which is cool. Slightly different filter, slightly different settings here on the vocoder. And that's it for the basses. Then I've got this polygrid here that is making this lead sound. And this is the exact same thing as the other one. So I'm using that sine wave sample that I made from my silence. And I'm turning that into the lead by doing that sine mod thing on it again, which, as I said, is kind of like FM in it. Again, you can get a lot of variation out of the formant. At higher registers, the formant on this particular sound starts to sound a lot like sync. Cool. So basically this whole sound is just two of those mixed together, and one's an octave higher than the other. So if I turn this down. And that one by itself. That's it. So yeah, that's the lead. That's just going through some delay, which I've got low passed, so it's not too clicky. Then we've got some reverb. So yeah, then we've got the reverb. I've got the reverb EQ'd and chorus to make it sound better. Then also I've got an EQ on the actual sound itself, where I'm pulling out some other stuff, and there's some chorus on it to widen it as well. Sick. Okay, then here's the vocal sample that I used. Kind of cheated, but I wanted to put that in here.
5G cell tower.
So this is just a mixture of the original vocal, which is from like
5G cell tower.
some news show or something. And then also I've got a copy of it underneath itself,
5G cell tower.
which is just an octave lower, and then this is the original,
5G cell tower.
and then together.
5G cell tower.
And they're also pitching down at the end, so like it's kind of like a tape stop type thing. So that's that. And is there anything else here? Yeah, I didn't want to add a bunch of percussion or make loads of cymbals and shit, because it would have just taken forever to do that. So all I added really was just this noise blast thing. Noise sweep. Basic noise sweep, again, just use that sample, which I've got looping here in the sampler. I put a limiter on it because the volume was kind of inconsistent with the loop, so that just makes the volume more consistent. Then I've EQ'd it here because there's some resonances in the sound, the original sound, that I didn't want. So if I take this off, there's like some really, really resonant frequency there. So just took that out. Bye-bye, resonant frequency. And then there's a low-pass filter on that, because I don't need to explain this, I don't think. But yeah, there's some delay and some reverb, and that's it. Then I have a preset here from the Bitwig library. That's the reverb for the drums. This is made by Miles Deep, who I think is Audio Digital here on YouTube. I didn't tweak this at all. I just lowered the decay because, to be quite frank, I don't really understand what's going on in there. So that's that. Then here's the reverb for the snare tail, which makes the snare tail longer. And then I made it a bit louder here on the master by putting, I don't know, this kind of stuff on it. And yeah. Is there anything else to show you that I did? Okay, so that's it. Made a song out of silence. Subscribe for more of these type of things. Like the video as well. Like the video. Thank you for watching. Subscribe. Thanks for subscribing if you have already subscribed. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day. Have a nice evening. Hope you're keeping well. Stay safe. And goodbye again.